Welcome in, everybody. My name's John.
And I'm Griffin.
In this week's episode, we're going to give you an update on the tariff situation and explain why you might not see e-bike prices this low for quite some time.
Yeah, if you've been thinking about buying, might want to get on it before prices go up.
That's right. We'll also talk about Specialized's latest eMTB, as well as a recall on 3 of their e-bikes.
Yeah, the recalls are minor, but the eMTB news is huge.
And then we're also going to compare a ton of different e-bikes today as we respond to questions and comments from you guys, our audience.
There are just so many bikes to compare, so let's get into it on your weekly recharge. So each week we start things off by finding the best things on the web that are either epic or funny or some combination of both. Let's see what the team found for us this week.
Yeah.
Or just weird. I like the just weird personally.
Me too.
All right, so starting things off from Chris Benchetler on Instagram.
Whoa.
What?
I saw the new Tron trailer, but I didn't see this on there.
That is some Tron levels. Look at that, like the gap jump right there too. Sweet.
That's incredible. I love
Gives
it.
a big old shout out to his group in the caption there. That is awesome. I've always wanted to have a bike that had like all the LED lights all over it. They just look so cool. Videos are always
I also want to play like midnight neon paintball in that situation on e-bikes. That'd be fun.
I was gonna say, yeah, do both. I like it.
Heck yeah.
Okay, what do we got here next up? RedKit62.
Oh no, he's falling. No, just kidding.
Look at the pause. Look at the hesitation. Look at the dog. What the?
Wait, what? That's some good editing.
That's okay. That was some editing,
Nice.
right? Okay, I was like, wait, what just happened? The dog actually went under it.
That was super cool. That's really good.
Yeah, it's real good at it. Like,
Oh.
got some really good, drawing skills and editing skills here.
Oh man, this is so cool.
This stuff is so satisfying. Little doggy and he knows like right where to go.
It's like real life Looney Tunes.
It is like really some Scooby-Doo action, you know, like going in one door, popping out the other.
Roadrunner, Coyote.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, so cool.
This is really satisfying.
I just want to sit here and watch this.
Oh, we switched animals. Oh, the cow is less on board.
Okay.
Oh, don't want to jump in the water.
Whoa, careful.
Whoopsie.
Hey, nice. Good
Oh,
save.
that's so planned. Ain't no way.
Uh-oh, lost his phone.
Oh, it's like one of my biggest fears going over any like storm drain.
Yeah, same.
All right. Well, that is awesome. I've always been jealous. I have 0 artistic ability, so drawing something that could like actually give people pause on the road.
That's honestly incredible. Yeah.
All right. So Duro the Third, Instagram. What do we
Okay,
do?
little adapter rack kind of deal. Ah, it's so
It was a little bike.
stubby. Is that a kid's bike?
I
looks like
think
a
so.
kid's-
Yeah, it looks kind of like a toddler. Oh, not toddler, maybe a little bit older, but
They can take their lunch to school with them.
styling.
Yeah.
The GT frame extender clones that I used to make. Should I make more of them? Yes,
That's
absolutely. I
really
always be
cool.
making stuff.
Good job, Duro the Third.
Yeah. Up next, who we got?
RTR bikes.
Okay. Easy to install. Test
Storage
break.
rack.
Ooh, the vertical storage.
That is absolutely slick.
Vertical storage is underrated, people. It saves so much room in the
It
garage.
also just looks really cool.
I had my bikes on the ground forever, and as soon as I got like some vertical storage
Wall
for it,
rack,
like
yeah.
like I have no idea why I waited so long.
Dang. Well,
Okay, very nice, very nice. Last but not least,
demilked original.
Demilked, that original.
Okay, love these build videos.
I know.
These are very cool.
Let's see. Oh. Bye, spokes.
You're supposed to keep those. Oh wait, what are we doing? A
Wheel
belt?
and a wheel
Oh,
with a
that's a conversion kit.
Bosch motor.
Dang. Okay.
Not your typical Bosch motor. But I mean, you can't deny the usefulness.
I didn't know they made hub drives.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, like,
That was some good stuff
It
this
took me a
week.
second on that one, but yes, hub drive indeed.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. And as always, thanks to the team for finding some cool stuff. All right, diving into the news this week, our first story is, as it has been for a while here, about tariffs. So the Trump administration lowered tariffs on many of the countries that rolled out last week, but the trade war with China has kind of just continued to escalate here. So we reported last week that the Trump administration added basically sweeping tariffs to over 180 countries with a baseline of 10% applied to those goods, but varying rates depending on the country, and those went all the way up to 49% in some cases. And I'm sure, as you're aware, the stock market took a big hit after that. But there's been some backpedaling here. So essentially, the tariffs on many countries have been paused, at least for 90 days. There is still a base 10% applying to every country, but anything above that has been reduced to 10% for the next 90 days. Now, of course, China basically retaliated for that because we're not... we're choosing to continue applying tariffs to Chinese goods. They retaliated with an 84% tariff on exports from the US. So then we did the same thing in return, and now tariffs on Chinese goods are up to 125% at the time of filming. But of course, that can change by the minute.
Yep.
So how does that relate to e-bikes? We've seen a couple companies put out statements saying that they're going to increase prices. For example, 10ways had a statement that I saw on social media. Velotric has committed to raising prices on April 15th. So, you know, we will see what happens as the situation progresses, but that's kind of what we're looking at the moment.
I was going to say, that's kind of the reality. Almost all the brands that we kind of checked in on have either made their announcements or they're trying to figure out exactly what they need to do.
Yep.
Now, it takes a couple of days for us to get this particular video live, and so I'm actually expecting things to change because it's pretty much a daily occurrence at this point. Again, fingers crossed that it's good news and not, further escalation, but, time will tell. We'll kind of just see how these things all roll out. So, keep posted as we learn more.
That's the best we can do.
And the ramifications for the e-bike industry. So,
also, before, just wanted to make a statement here that this is the 26th episode of our show here. We got some upgrades and mics, as you can see, but
right.
Just also wanted to kind of celebrate that we've been going for 6 months strong here. So thank you guys for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks so much for following along, support, and sticking around with us for news and more.
100%.
So also next up we've got Specialized announced a recall on 3 different bike models. So this is affecting those that have internally geared hubs, specifically the Turbo Como SL, and the Turbo Vado. So these particular models were sold between 2021 and 2024. Again, internal gear hub only. If you have a typical like cassette and derailleur, then it's fine. But part of the chain guard can catch on to some clothing. There have been some minor accidents reported, which is why they're doing this voluntary recall, which is good. No major injuries yet, and they're getting out in front of it, which is always great to see. That's whenever we report on recalls, it's just we like it when it's voluntary and there's no major injuries, which is the case here, which is good.
Absolutely.
But in further Specialized news, so the big news of the week was the Turbo Levo Gen 4 dropped. It's already going to be a contender for eMTB of the year. Just a lot of impressive tech. So we actually did our first ride review with Justin and Bryce.
Yep.
They have their hands on the S-Works model. So obviously this is a premium tier e-bike. Even the quote-unquote cheapest one is still just like phenomenal, and the high end is just got all of the tech and gizmos and gadgets you could ever want. So let's go over some of the highlights of it really quick. So again, with the S-Works model, we looked at carbon fiber frame and a removable 840 watt-hour battery. It also has some internal storage within the frame, which is really cool. I'm always a bigger fan of some more storage and not adding more to the pack. So some other specs included. So there are 2 different motors. Both are Specialized 3.1 motors. One of them has 101 newton meters of torque with up to 666 peak watts. 666, beware.
Ooh.
But over on the S-Works that we took a look at, 111 newton meters of torque, 720 watts of peak power. So they have joined the 100 newton meter torque club, which is awesome. Again, the S-Works has a full Fox float suspension setup with 160 mil travel on the fork and 150 on the rear, a SRAM XX Eagle drivetrain. There are 5 different frame size options, plus you can alter the geo a little bit. There is an option for smaller batteries too. If the 840 sounds like way, you don't want the extra weight or something like that, you can actually go down to a 600 watt-hour battery. And then, of course, the ability to switch to a Class 3 with pedal assist up to 28 miles per hour, which
That's very cool.
did not see that one coming. So that's actually really awesome.
Anybody did, yeah.
So prices start at $7,999 for the entry model, and then go to $13,499, which is actually a little bit cheaper than I was expecting, kind of given all the tariff news and everything going on. I think like the last S-Works stuff were like 15 to
Knock
17.
on wood, because that might...
I was like, that might change. Again, we're going to see how things kind of unfold over the next little bit. But again, really impressive one. We've taken a look at that, so check that out on our YouTube channel if you haven't already.
And then last major news story for this week is a European e-bike company called Ampler released what they're calling the first e-bikes that can be charged through USB-C cables.
Woo, universal charging for all the devices. I'm here for it.
You and me both, yeah. And so this was actually following a move at the end of last year where the European Union standardized the use of USB-C for basically all of your common electronics, phones, tablets, keyboards, portable speakers, all that stuff. So basically what this allows for is, you to use a standard laptop charger, connect a USB-C cord to that, plug your bike in, and in this case, with these 2 specific models, you can charge in just about 3 hours. So Both of these bikes are very similar. They're lightweight city bikes. They're called the Nova and the Nova Pro. They are handmade in Estonia, so that's pretty cool. Following EU laws, they both have 250 watt motors with pedal assist up to either 25 kilometers per hour, which translates to about 16 miles per hour here. The regular model has a 9-speed microshift drivetrain, while the Pro has either a 10-speed Shimano Dior drivetrain or a single-speed with a Gates carbon belt. There's a couple frame sizes. There's both a high step and a step-through design, and then that battery size is 336 watt-hours. Unfortunately, we won't get our hands on these because they're not coming to the US, but for those of you watching overseas, they are priced at either, $29.90 for the standard Nova, and then either $34.90 or $35.90 for the Pro model, depending on which drivetrain you choose.
Yeah, really interesting news too, because like we have obviously tested a lot of different bikes, tons of different chargers out there. So them adopting USB-C, it'd be kind of interesting to see if like others follow suit, or maybe just less chargers across different bikes. Who knows? We'll kind of see what the future holds.
Again, all in favor of standardization. It just makes it easy.
100%. And then last thing by way of news, so it's here, John. Seattle Classic time. The bike industry's biggest event happening out in Monterey. So we've actually got a team out there right now. They are following along. By the time you are watching this, Seattle will be close to
wrapping up.
But we, the team's out there. If there's any huge game-breaking things, we're going to try to get that on the website as quickly as possible. Make sure to check our social channels. We'll have a lot of stuff for you there. And just yay, Seattle! Always one of the best times of the year.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, this has been the season for new bikes, and this gives us a chance to see what's coming down the pipes.
Okay, and now we're going to go through our gear highlight. And like we teased last week, we finally got in a bunch of different accessories for the Ride1Up Vorsa that we just finished reviewing a couple of weeks ago. So it's kind of a good mix of some basic stuff and some a little out of the ordinary things. We're going to kind of walk you through all the different stuff that we got. John, where should we start?
Let's start off with the rear basket here. So that it's actually pretty interesting. It ships relatively flat. We actually assembled it. It's got the liner and the cargo net on top. So that sells for $60. It has 20 pounds of carrying capacity, and it does attach to the rear rack there.
And I really like the liner. It kind of just like takes away some of the like big bulky metal and whatnot. And then you got like zippers, those whole little things, which is nice.
Definitely, yeah. We've been using that to carry stuff around for the show today, so definitely functioning. Next up, we have the pannier bags or pannier bags. Let us know down in the comments how you say that word. We go back and forth depending. Yeah. So this set of pannier bags goes for $60. It's double-sided. It's got Velcro straps, and it's also water resistant and made of pretty durable feeling fabric.
Yeah, which is like really nice. Like it's a little bit like stiff, but kind of like in a good way, because especially there's like a dividing wall like right here, so you can take advantage of that pocket, stiff dividing wall, and then a decent amount of space inside. For those who are like, I've got a backpack, I don't need a pannier, that's what I told myself, but like getting the weight off your back and into like a bag changes the handling a lot, like in a good way. So
in a good way,
definitely something to consider.
I also like the little reflective strips on there. I got to be careful not to swear. So
a little extra, safety never hurts.
All right, next up we've got the platform rack for the front of the bike. That has a capacity of 50 pounds, and there's accessories that are compatible with that as well. And that sells for $100.
Yep, that's pretty heavy duty too. A lot of front racks are just like 20 pounds, so heavy duty, and again the quick connect. That's nice.
Heavy duty, is relatively bulky, but it definitely seems well made. And then last but not least, we have the passenger kit here, which comes with a seat pad and then foot pegs. There's sets of these folding foot pegs. But the thing I really like about that is the sort of quick release mechanism there. So most of the time, you've got to like screw something on from underneath, whereas that you just kind of push it down and it snaps into place.
It's really nice too if you get like everything at the same time, because if you have a passenger, like just snap in, pop off really quick. You don't have to bust out the tools, which is nice. And then just throw on your, Velcroing panniers.
That's what I say too.
French and I can't say pannier. I have to say panniers. So.
The passenger kit here sells for $125, and the seat pad here has 150 pounds of carrying capacity. So yeah,
definitely one of the highlights of the Vorsa. You can actually like go with a passenger, which is just really cool. But there's just tons of different gear you can do, like a little bit of light bike packing or something like that. So.
Pretty unusual for a commuter/SUV e-bike. So that's
So if you're looking at the Vorsa, just make sure to check out some of the accessories as well. Okay, now we want to give you a little peek behind the curtain to some of the reviews we have in the works. So we actually just got in the new Ceres Edge. So this is a fully new hitch rack. Really excited about this one. It is no frame contact, but it's e-bike specific, meaning it's got a high weight capacity up to 80 pounds per bike, which is always awesome to see. Really cool like attachment too. So it's got like one of those hook arms, but it's spring loaded. So if you have like a slow leak that you're not aware of and like you lose tire pressure, it's actually just gonna like keep cinching down and keep like a tight grasp on there.
Genius.
Yeah, I thought that was a really smart idea. And then like in addition to that, 53-inch wheelbase, so it can hold some longer bikes. And then a bunch of other like kind of classic, like forward tilt, some other like cool features, but I'll get that on my car here soon. Start testing that one out. Eager to see how it does.
All right, Mr. Hitch Rack.
That's right.
Griffin is the guy.
Someone likes a hitch on their car.
That's right, exactly. As far as other things that are currently in testing, I've mentioned previously that we've had a string of bikes that are under embargo, and that is still true, unfortunately. So one of those products is going to be going live next week. So if you haven't already subscribed, please do that and be sure to tune in. It's a really cool bike. I can't tell you any more about it, but it's definitely worth checking
Muzzle
out.
will come off next week, and we'll talk a lot more about it on next week's episode, I'm sure, too.
Looking forward to that, for sure. And then as far as things that have gone live in the past week, so we had the first take review on the Turbo Levo that we referenced earlier, so pretty excited about that. And then the Electric Expedition 2.0 has been out for a while, but we didn't get our hands on it until relatively recently. So we did a first impressions review of that at Electric's announcement event.
That's right, down in Phoenix.
Now we've gotten to fully test that, run it through our performance tests. So my review of that went live as well. So again, if you're interested in any of that stuff, be sure to check it out. Each and every week, we take a look at a different place around the country, or sometimes even the world, where, there's cool trails, cool bike infrastructure, something like that. This week is a little bit different, where we're actually talking about a place that was highlighted or brought up to our attention by our Rider of the Week last week.
So this came to us from Jeff Gadbois. Thanks again, Jeff, for mentioning this in the comments. So this is the Polly Ann Trail in Michigan. Really cool looking like trail. Like in some ways, it kind of reminds me of the first time we did this segment, we highlighted our own trail system, right? Which is really cool, really beautiful in its own right. And then not everything's like the you must see before you die type thing, but It's just like, if that's in your backyard, like a lot of pride in it. I got similar vibes just looking at the photos of some of this stuff. So again, Jeff, thank you for the suggestion. And just quick, message to everyone of hey, you can write in, tell us places to check out, and we'll take a look at them. But back to Polly Ann here. So a couple things stand out. It is 37 total miles, but kind of divided into two different main sections. The first one is 17 miles of crushed stone surface, and then the other 20 miles kind of connects to rougher ballast surface, 20 miles to North Branch Township in Michigan. So that one's a little bit better for eMTBs and stuff like that. So kind of tale of two things. You got easier 17 miles, a little bit more intensive 20 miles. Cool. But really cool looking. This was established back in 2019, and just so many of these trails that we kind of cover, it's a former rail line because it just lends themselves really nice to making some cool bike paths.
Straight, empty, already cleared of trees.
I was gonna say solid foundation, all that good stuff you kind of need. So the rail line itself dates back to 1869. Got caught up in the the gold rush, I guess you could say, the golden spike, and everyone was building railroads everywhere. It kind of looks like, according to the history I found on their website. And then the last train action it saw was in 1984. So again, kind of a newer trail, just 2019 established, but it is e-bike friendly, so class 1 e-bikes are allowed. And then there's just tons of really cool nature here. I mean, I love the look of these woods. You've also got this river with this nice little lookout, boardwalk thing that leads out to a good little viewing area. It's also a really diverse area too. You can do a lot of different stuff, not just bike riding. You can hike, of course. You can even ride horses. There's something here about doing some skis. So if you're a cross country kind of guy, you can do that in the area.
It's really pretty. It's all season friendly as well from lots of things.
All season. There's just tons of stuff you can do. It looks really nice, and just kind of take it all in. One of the local stops, different places you can hop off and go find some food. There was one called Frosty Boy Ice Cream, which looks like a good little ice cream shop. I was kind of in a snacky mood when I was writing this up, and so the ice cream jumped out. And Frosty Boy, John is usually the salty boy here, but
sometimes
we're highlighting Frosty Boy. So again, just a really cool little area, and Michigan looks like a beautiful place. So.
That's awesome. As Griffin said, you can definitely feel free to let us know if you have any cool stuff in your backyard. You can let us know down in the comments section, or email us, as always, at questions@electricbikereport.com.
All right, so now it's time for John and my favorite section. Hopefully it's your favorite section too. This is where we get into questions and comments from our audience, either on our YouTube channel or at the website, or at questions@electricbikereport.com. So let's start things off with Jerome Hebert 3184 on YouTube, who asks, I would like to hear your analysis of the Velotric Discover 2 compared to the Nomad 2, as they seem so similar. Not sure which would tilt a rider to one over the other. Cool. What's up, Adriel?
Yeah, definitely. So just as a heads up here, we're going to do quite a few comparisons in this episode, but this is going to be kind of the big one, and then we'll keep the rest of them a little bit on the shorter side.
Yeah, we'll try to keep it rolling.
But, that's a very good question, and if you're not familiar with various styles of e-bike, it definitely makes sense that both of these bikes could seem very similar on paper. They do share many similar features, but they are also quite different. So, yeah, we'll kind of do a run-through of specs, test data, that sort of thing, and then kind of wrap up for our thoughts on what type of person each bike is best for. Starting off with their similarities, both bikes on paper have 750 watt motors. They do differ a little bit, so we'll talk about that in a sec, but they both have fully integrated 706 watt hour batteries, 8-speed drivetrains, hydraulic disc brakes, 2 frame sizes, color displays, and also the ability to switch between torque and cadence sensing modes, as well as some other cool stuff that Velotric bikes offer, like 3 riding modes with 15 total pedal assist levels. There's integrated lights and turn signals, MIK HD cargo racks, full UL certification, and then IPX6 and 7 ratings for the bike and battery. So that's a lot of similarity, a lot of overlap there, but let's get into the nitty gritty. So when it comes to specs, let's talk about the motor first. The Nomad 2 peaks at 1300 watts with 90 newton meters of torque. I'll talk about the Nomad stuff here and then let Griffin handle the Discover 2. So Discover 2 is a little bit lower powered, right, Griffin?
Yeah, so that one is at 1100 watts with 75 newton meters of torque.
Moving on to the gearing, the Nomad 2, that again, 8-speed drivetrain, has a 48-tooth chainring with an 11 to 40-tooth cassette.
And then over on the Discover 2, 46-tooth chainring, 11 to 32-tooth cassette.
So yeah, I guess
You're a little bit different, but kind of like normal for like the difference in tire size and like weight and stuff, just kind of how it affects the moving. But I think both actually kind of well matched for what the type of bike that they are.
Definitely, especially, both capable of class 3 speeds as well. So geared appropriately and a little bit wider of a range on the Nomad for off-roading. Let's see, for the brakes side of things, the Nomad 2 has the Tektro TDK 171 system with 2 different size rotors. So there's a 203 millimeter rotor on the front wheel and a 180 millimeter rotor on the rear.
Yep, and then with the Discover 2, it's the Tektro E3520, 180 mil both front and rear.
So yeah, we've seen those brake systems on a few different bikes, and they have very similar performance. But the Nomad 2 with again heavier and off-road capability, that larger,
a little bit more robust on there, just kind of like makes sense.
For sure. Tires, of course, as a fat tire bike, the Nomad 2 has larger and heavier tires. So those are 26x4s with a knobby tread from Kenda.
And then on the Discover 2, you get a larger diameter, 27.5-inch tire with 2.4-inch, more of a street tread, also from Kenda on that one.
Both are, very appropriate for the style of bike there. On the weight side of things, the Nomad 2 is definitely heavier. It's 84 pounds, including the 10-pound battery.
And then Discover 2 is a little bit lighter, 69.5 pounds. That also includes the battery. On the sizing side, again, both bikes have 2 frame sizes. So the range on the Nomad 2 goes from 5'2" to 6'5". It does also come in a high step and step through frame. The Discover 2 is a step through only, and that's going to be good for riders from 4'11" up to 6'4".
Yep. On payload capacity, both of these bikes are kind of insane. That's just a kind of a trademark of Velotric.
Velotric's kind of always been on the higher side for sure.
So the Nomad 2 is, at least at this point in time, the highest payload capacity that we've seen of 505 pounds.
And then you get 440 over on the Discover 2, so a little bit of a difference there.
Which is still huge and larger than most cargo bikes.
For sure.
As far as our testing data goes, again, both bikes did a great job, especially when compared to their respective categories. So when it comes to our range test, the Nomad 2 gave us 24 and 67 miles.
And then the Discover 2 did a little bit better, 41 and 86 miles on the lighter and narrower tire bike. Kind of makes some sense.
It makes some sense, especially considering that they, again, have that same battery size. In our hill test, again, the results kind of make sense here. So the Nomad 2 climbed in 1 minute and 25 seconds on throttle and just 1 minute and 12 seconds when pedaling. And that was using the torque sensing mode.
Yeah, we kept it in torque sensing for both bikes. And then with the Discover 2, so a little slower on the throttle at 1 minute and 40 seconds. And then a little bit closer on the pedal, though, 1 minute 17 there.
Which, again, Nomad 2 has higher peak wattage and torque, so those numbers add up. In our brake test, the Nomad 2 stopped in 20 feet and 9 inches, which is pretty impressive.
Yeah, and then Discover 2 did good in its own right, 21 feet 7 inches for that one.
So yeah, again, that larger brake rotor on the Nomad 2 definitely added into that. When it comes to ride quality, so this is really where the bikes are going to differ the most.
Yep.
So again, fat tire bike with the Nomad 2, those huge heavy tires, but they keep the bike feeling very stable and balanced. The added weight also makes you feel a lot more stuck to the ground. Not the Discover 2 feels loosey-goosey in any sort of way, but it's, again, just a little bit more noticeable on the Nomad 2. The fat tire style also has a mostly upright riding position, but it's a little bit sportier, so there's a slight forward lean there. And then that bike also includes both a suspension fork and suspension seat post. So it just really kind of maximizes comfort there. There's also a big cushy kind of cruiser style saddle. And then just with the suspension and the tires and the more powerful motor, the Nomad 2 does have a little bit better off-roading capability.
And then just taking a little bit closer look at the ride quality of Discover 2. So you're getting something that is just very relaxed. It is like kind of blends commuter and cruiser styling really well, but the cruiser elements definitely take over. You're very upright. You've got that, crimped like handlebar that comes back.
Yep.
And then it's more nimble. It's just a little bit lighter weight. You can definitely tell a difference if you ride them back to back. Like it's still 70 pounds. It's your typical like heavier e-bike, but comparatively you just feel a lot more, like lighter, a little bit more easily handling that way. No suspension seat post on that one. Still something we think of as a comfortable bike, but it is one of the differences that you're kind of seeing between the two.
Yeah, kind of surprising. And you can add that separately.
I was like, you can tack that on, just come standard with the Nomad though.
So as far as recommendations go, we recommend the Nomad 2. For anyone who really wants that stability and sturdiness that is typical of a fat tire bike, as long as you're okay with the added weight there, if you're moving your bike around on a cargo rack, that may play into that, although you can, of course, take the battery out. But it's also really good for anybody who wants a lot of versatility with on and off-road capability, so it's able to do a little bit of everything. And, it just has that little bit of a sportier feel if you're comfortable with that.
Definitely. And then the Discover 2 is just something we like a little bit more for, again, it's agile, it's a little bit easier to move around. If you're going to stick to paved roads for most of the time, it's probably like where I would start with my recommendation is that one's just going to be a little bit better for it. It's the type of thing you can take over some of the crushed stone paths, like really like mild stuff. But in general, you're not doing anything more than just sticking to the roads with that one. And just really good comfort and cruising and handling.
Velotric's bikes have just been great across the board. Yeah, comfort, performance. I mean, they're priced well. They have a ton of features, so great value. And if you're considering one or the other, hopefully that helps you out. Cool. But moving on here, this is a comment and actually a little bit of an interaction with one of our audience members whose name is Fly Baby Whale.
Well, I'm going to pop that into an image creator later and see what I get out.
This was on our best e-bikes video of 2025. And she says, I've been using my Radrunner 2 as my daily commuter for about 4 years, riding around 7 miles a day. As someone on the shorter side, this bike has been absolutely perfect for me, and I've grown really attached to it. Now that the battery is getting old, I'm considering replacing it, but after seeing how much it costs, I'm starting to think it might make more sense to just get a new bike. I truly love my Radrunner, but I'm torn between getting the Aventon Level 3, the Sinch 2.5, or upgrading to the Radrunner 3. Your videos really help me. Thanks. Well, appreciate that. Yeah. And again, we had a bit of an interaction here. So I reached out to ask a little, for a little bit more detail as far as how this rider uses her bike and, some details about her. So she responded saying that she's 5'1", she's in her mid 40s. She primarily uses the bike for transportation. That includes commuting and some limited grocery shopping. She rides on paths that are well maintained, but there are some steep hills there, and she really values braking performance. And she also asked a separate question, if it's okay to ride an e-bike in the rain.
Okay. And again, thank you so much for reaching out. Fly Baby Whale. I'm still putting that image creator. I just want to see it.
We'll show that on screen.
So let me start things off with, if you've been happy with your Radrunner 2, I think I'd probably start with taking a look at the Radrunner 3. If you're happy, I usually don't deviate. This is coming from someone who's bought the same iPhone for years and years and years. So kind of a similar recommendation, especially where, she said she's 5'1", a little bit shorter. I think that is a bike that accommodates riders on the shorter end of the spectrum very, very well. If you've liked your Radrunner 2, I think the Radrunner 3 is just an improvement in just about like every way, like either like small steps or like even larger ones. It's a good climber. It's gonna have it's a cadence sensor similar to what you're coming off the Radrunner 2. If you've enjoyed the engagement of that now, it's just it's more of the same, but again, like the motor is a little bit better. So easy climbing, it's going to be active, and all the things you've enjoyed now, just a little bit more, higher carrying capacity. And then of course
it just looks better.
I was going to say, I do like the looks of the Radrunner 3. It feels more sleek, just kind of feels like a more modern like approach, I think.
Definitely.
And then, it can be outfitted with tons of accessories. I don't know how many things you have for your Radrunner 2 now. I know there's some compatibility with the accessories. I don't think all of them do transfer over, but again, the Runner 3, it's a short tail cargo bike at the end of the day. There's just so much stuff you can do with it for all the different activities you kind of described. The Level 3 is a fantastic bike. Do not get that twisted in any way, shape, or form. We love that bike. The step through might work for you at 5'1". I don't have the height range up here off the top of my head, but again, it might work for you. It's definitely a bike that we like a lot. The Radrunner series has been on sale for the last little bit.
Oh yeah.
So again, tariff stuff going on. I don't know if that stays, but to me, it kind of looked like a clearance sale, so I think it's probably going to stay. But Level 3 is going to be a step up in price. Another one, the Sinch 2.5 is also a good bike. It's great if it folds, and if you do need that easier transportation, easier storage, something like that. Definitely something looking into. I wouldn't say that the ride quality is as good as it as
just as a folding bike. There's some trade-offs.
There are a couple of trade-offs there. It's good for what it is, but I think I'd probably stick with the Runner first and then look at the Level second. And then, going back to the question, can you ride e-bikes in the rain? You definitely can. So just about every e-bike maker in this day and age, you can ride them in the rain with confidence. Some have higher levels of water protection, but in general, just the falling rain, no sweat. You can definitely ride with that. So
just be careful if it rains, super hard. You might want to get out of the rain and don't keep your bike out there.
I was gonna say I wouldn't park it in the rain per se. I'd be extra cautious. But yeah, in general, you can ride through the rain, be all right. So
sure. Thanks
great
for
question,
writing
and I hope that helps. All right, so for our next one, coming to us from the Ride1Up Portola review on YouTube, this is the A Room. Help! This or the Aventon Sinch 2.5. Any input would be super helpful. I'm trying to narrate, if they put it in all caps, I gotta up the game a little bit.
Spice it up,
yeah.
So that's a great question. And, speaking of the Sinch 2.5, we'll go through some things quickly here. I'm not going to, again, go into as much detail as we did with the two Velotric models earlier there. But both of these bikes are excellent, but they do differ quite a bit in price, performance, feel, all of that. So we'll kind of give you some thoughts here. Let's see. In terms of performance, they actually had identical brake test results, which was pretty impressive. Nearly identical hill test results, so only a couple seconds of difference there. And both of those bikes are Class 2 and Class 3 capable. So bottom line, we'll just kind of boil it down here. We would recommend the Portola in a few cases here. So number one, if you want to save some money, it starts at $995 with the base battery that it's 499 watt hours, but you can upgrade to a 643 watt hour battery for a couple $100 more. And that's actually very close to the capacity of the Sinch 2.5. So it's even cheaper than the Sinch 2.5 if you choose to upgrade and get the similar capacity there.
Good value there.
We recommend the Portola if you want a low effort ride. So it's got a cadence sensor that has the current based programming. So, it does feel a little bit more natural than a traditional cadence sensor setup, but it's not going to be as responsive as the torque sensor on the Sinch 2.5. We also recommend the Portola if you plan to fold and move your bike around a lot. It's about 10 pounds lighter and just kind of naturally lends itself to being a little bit more portable. Go figure with the name Portola.
Portola.
That's right. And then finally, if you want some perhaps better light off-road versatility, again, the Sinch does pretty well and impressively well considering its tires, but the Portola has some knobbier tires that just give you a little bit better traction on dirt and gravel. But then on the Sinch 2.5 side, again, just kind of some specific cases here. We recommend that if you just want some upgrades. So it has the torque sensor that I mentioned, as well as a suspension seat post for added comfort. We recommend the Sinch 2.5 if you want more range. So again, fairly similar in terms of battery capacity, but this gets a little complicated. So we tested a pre-production model of the Portola that had a battery capacity that is no longer available. So we used basically our results from our testing to estimate some results on the small and large batteries that are currently available. So with that larger battery, we would estimate 21 to 47 miles. But in our testing, the Sinch 2.5 went 35 and 56. So, not a massive difference, but, it definitely a little bit higher on the Sinch side. We also recommend the Sinch if you want a little bit more stability. It's got wider tires, and that heavier overall weight keeps it feeling like it's stuck to the ground a bit more. And then again, just because of that weight, we recommend it if you don't plan to fold and transport the bike quite as often.
Yeah, it's one of the heavier ones out there for sure. So again, hopefully that's helpful. Let us know. Follow up on the comment too. I think we need to do that a little bit more.
I agree with that. That's a good point. Yeah.
Which one did you guys end up going for? So
let us know how you like your bike.
Let us know, 100%.
Moving on to a question from the Ride1Up Vorsa review. This comes to us from Mark Randolph on the website. He says, "Hi, Griffin."
Hi, Mark.
Thanks very much for the report here and the riding tests. I live in a second-story condo, so I'm very conscious of the bike's weight. I currently have Ride1Up's Roadster V3, which for me at 70 years old with some hip issues is quite easy for me to get up the stairs. I live in Seattle, so the Roadster is somewhat limited in its climbing performance. From this standpoint, the Vorsa would be great for me. I would sell the Roadster. My big hesitation with the Vorsa is its weight. Could you please do a tested weight of the bike with the following conditions? And that is the battery removed. What is the battery's weight? With the rear rack removed, what is the rack's weight? And he says, I'm guessing that with the above conditions, it should be in the low 60s. Thanks very much for your time and attention. Mark.
You betcha. And you are correct. You were very close to spot on with that, Mark. So
yeah, good job. Bravo.
We did weigh the bike at 71 pounds with the battery. So it is 63.5 pounds without. So, about 7.5 pounds there. The rack itself weighs 2.3 pounds. So without the rack and battery, the bike would weigh in at 61.2 pounds. The Vorsa is definitely the better climber, but have a tough time recommending it necessarily, just considering the weight and even with the battery removed. Neither of us would likely really want to carry it up a flight of stairs.
For sure. And we've got some years, you've got some years on us, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of one of those things. If you don't have like an elevator or something you can transport them, you are dealing with stairs. I tend to kind of stick with a lighter weight. If the Roadster V3, which you're on right now, which is by the way like one of the best city bikes we've had in terms of climbing, so it's
100%.
one of the best climbers you're going to find for that light, that lighter weight frame that it has. If it's feeling like it's just coming up a little bit short, I'd probably still stick with it. Now, if it's like flat out failing and you're having to walk like all the time or something like that, then you can maybe consider the Vorsa. But again, even popping the battery out and stuff like that, it's still going to be the heavier bike. So you could also maybe, just as a different thought, you could maybe look at the Ride1Up Limited V2. In some ways, it kind of splits the difference between what you have with the Roadster and what you would be looking at with the Vorsa. It weighs about 62 pounds with the battery and 54 without, so a little bit of weight savings there. It's faster than the Roadster on the hill test, and it was a great bike all around. In some ways, I think the Vorsa is kind of like the more like upgraded version of the Limited, but
that makes sense.
At the same time, if you're just you need something like reliable like ride or something like that, a little bit lighter weight but a little bit more power than what you got now, that might be one worth taking a look at as well.
Also, kudos for all the Ride1Up love.
Yeah, 100%.
Good stuff.
All right, so next one up we have Sir May Shukla 5958. That's as close.
Sounds good to me.
That's as close as I'm going to get. So this is from the Mokwheel Basalt ST review on YouTube. What is your comparison between the Basalt 2.0 and Obsidian? The comparisons keep on rolling.
Yeah, and I keep getting landed with those, which is good. I like talking about bikes. At their heart, both of those bikes are actually pretty similar. So actually, when the Obsidian first came out, it was kind of told to us by our contact at the brand that it's basically the Basalt with a full suspension.
Kind of, yeah. In some ways oversimplification, but also not really. It's actually very close to that.
Definitely. So really the major difference there is, again, the full suspension, but also the Obsidian has a more powerful motor. It comes with a 1,000-watt rear hub instead of the 750 on the Basalt. The Basalt kind of trades a bit of power for some upgrades, especially with the 2.0 model. It has integrated brake lights and turn signals, as well as a cool removable display that just kind of adds a layer of security. So if you park the bike, you can take that off, and then nobody can ride off.
It's essentially like taking the key out of the ignition, like no one can ride off that.
So there are some slight differences in specs. Both bikes have Tektro hydraulic disc brakes. The Obsidian has the TDK 171 model. Basalt has the E350 model. The Obsidian has an 8-speed drivetrain. The Basalt is a 7-speed. A little bit of a difference in gearing there, but they both pedal pretty similarly. Our testing showed nearly identical programming and speed capabilities in our speed test. So, pretty much neck and neck there, although the Obsidian is going to be a little bit faster to pick up in speed just with the more powerful motor. Both bikes come with the same size battery, so it wasn't really a surprise that their range tests were nearly identical. There's only, again, a couple miles of difference there. Hill climbing is where things differed a little bit more. So again, as makes sense with the more powerful motor, the Obsidian did climb hellhole faster, both with its throttle and when pedaling. So, bottom line, again, boiling it down, we recommend the Obsidian if you want the most comfortable ride with that full suspension. And, firsthand, I will tell you that even, riding out in the desert on some rough roads, that thing is very smooth.
Yeah, definitely.
We also recommend it if you want just the fastest climbing and acceleration. The Basalt is quite capable, but the Obsidian is just going to give you more there. And we also recommend the Obsidian if you plan to do most of your riding off-road. So just one big thing to keep in mind there, especially as cities, states are kind of cracking down on e-bikes. And regulating things a little bit more, a 1,000-watt rear hub motor is less likely to be street legal than a 750-watt motor. So if that is, a consideration, you may want to swing towards the Basalt. We would also recommend the Basalt if you want, again, that on-road flexibility as well. Just a more secure ride overall with a removable display, a little bit safer on the road with the turn signals, brake lights, that sort of thing. But also, bottom line, the Basalt is great if you just want to save some money.
Yeah.
Price there is $1,700 right now at the time of filming versus $2,200 on the Obsidian. But again, both bikes are awesome.
Yeah, 100%. With the Basalt too, it's like a lot of fat tire e-bikes are on road primarily, and then they can do some handle some off-roading.
Right.
So to back up what John said, if you're mostly sticking to paved paths, me personally, I'd probably pocket the savings because I think the full suspension, it's undeniably nice, but the cost to jump up there is a little bit rich for my blood for just on-roading. But if you do want to do a healthy amount of off-roading, I would probably look harder at the Obsidian because we were actually really impressed with how the suspension did on that bike. So
yeah, especially with the ST model, they did a really nice job there.
Cool.
But wrapping things up with our last question here. This comes to us from one of our shorts that we published about the Vorsa from Gino. I'm sorry.
You got this.
Ryanaya. 8982.
Yep, sure.
Something like that. I apologize if I butchered that as always. But anyway, would you recommend the Vorsa for a heavy rider? I weigh 270 pounds. It would be my first e-bike and I live in the mountains, so the hills can get a bit steep.
Awesome. Absolutely, I would. So one of the other things behind the scenes I'm working on right now, I'm actually making some updates to our best e-bikes for heavier riders page, a page I encourage people to go check out if you fit the criteria. But part of that update is I'm putting the Vorsa on that list. I do love that bike for heavy riders. It's one of our fastest, it's a lot of different styles, but commuter styles, one of the fastest up the hill.
Yeah.
The torque and cadence sensor, flexibility there is really nice because I always prefer the more natural pedal, but I've actually talked to a lot of larger riders who prefer cadence just because they're larger. It just kind of helps
easier.
move a little bit easier. So that's really nice. And then again, just really cool, commuter SUV style e-bike, just lots of fun things you can do with it. So I 100% 10 out of 10 recommend. Payload on that is also 440 pounds, which is amongst the highest you're going to find out there. And yeah, I think it's a really great ride. So I think you'd really enjoy it if you're considering it.
As always, thanks to everyone who wrote in over the past week. We're very happy to respond to your questions. So if you have anything you want to have us address, let us know down in the comments or again at questions@electricbikereport.com. There we go. Griffin. You know what time it is. It's time for Deals of the Week.
Oh no, the Adams Family. It's not snapping.
It's not. No, not this week.
So unfortunately this week we're kind of embracing the new reality of what tariffs are doing. So as John and I went to go find some good deals to share with you, unfortunately what we found was a lot of different notifications
Prices
from just
are going
about
up.
all of the brands saying that prices will be going up soon. Some are taking effect today and rolling out over the next few days across different brands as they kind of, sort through all the tariff stuff as it's happening.
It's a lot to navigate in the moment and, it's unpredictable from moment to moment.
So this week's Deals of the Week is basically in the form of, we've actually been kind of happy with the e-bike prices where they've been at. We feel that brands have really priced things pretty fairly. Unfortunately, those prices are going to have to increase because tariffs are something passed on to the consumers, which is us, because that's what brands have to charge to viably remain in business. So if you've been on the fence about getting an e-bike, this is where I would tell you, I would definitely try and get it now. And I would point you to our best pages at electricbikereport.com. You can start with our best overall page for, top e-bike models across different categories. We also have individual best pages for categories, your fat tires, folding, whatever it is you're looking for. Start with those bikes. We obviously like all of them. It's how they made the best page, and hopefully prices haven't increased there. But again, I wouldn't wait any longer.
Agreed. I mean, as the situation changes, maybe this section will turn into something else in the future. Maybe we'll be able to find better deals next week. But as for now, this is the unfortunate reality of the world we live in.
Yep.
But on that note, this is a good opportunity to remind you that if you don't like what's going on with tariffs, just feel free to reach out to your representatives and let them know that. The more people that speak up and make your voices heard, the more pressure there is to dial back the tariffs and get back to a world with normal prices.
And definitely do phone calls because, posting stuff online is great, but there's a lot of noise online. However, when you're making phone calls into your actual representatives, that's really you can kind of like ratchet up the pressure. If you're saying, hey, my e-bike prices are going up and there doesn't seem a lot of alternative to like get local manufacturing and local production and stuff like that So again, if you like us feel that way, let your local reps know.
And if you do decide to take this opportunity to purchase an e-bike, let us know what you buy.
So John mentioned this earlier, but we're actually on our 6-month anniversary episode. This is episode 26, half a year's worth, which is awesome. And that would not be possible without, you guys watching or tuning in. So thank you again, sincerely. And as a way to help kind of celebrate our audience, each week we like to highlight someone, a comment they left us, or sometimes people shoot us an email and kind of like show us what they're writing. But let's go ahead and get into it. John, who do we have this week?
So this week is Travis R8292. And I really appreciated this. So this is kind of a follow-up to last week when we talked about the canal path trails in the metropolitan Phoenix area, where I spent the last 11 years, essentially. This person said, I live in Peoria, Arizona, and commute on the trail system to work daily. My first experience was on my Fuji Carbon to the Oso Brewery in Phoenix.
Oso Brewery is the name of the restaurant I was trying to think of, by the way.
Was it?
Yeah, that was the one.
That's perfect timing. Its rear entrance is right off the trail, and it's bike friendly. The bar lends you a bike lock. I currently commute on a Pace 500.2, but have a level 3 on pre-order with my bike shop. Can't wait to try it out. So Travis, thank you very much. I'm glad you get to take advantage of that system. And hey, Oso is great. I've been there. I actually, with my D&D group, got to brew some beer there, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a super cool place.
But yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're not only making good use of that, but that you also have a super awesome bike on order. So again, let us know what you think of it.
Again, thank you so much for watching, listening, and speaking of listening, we're actually in the process of getting put onto Spotify. So hey, if you want to, just listen to this on the ride to work, we're going to make that possible. We're getting the full catalog put up on there now. So tune in, give us a listen, and follow on Spotify.
YouTube Music as well. Got a notification about that. But
hitting all the platforms, baby.
That's the goal anyway. We'll get there eventually. If you want to be featured on any future episode, make sure you write us in. Let us know what questions and comments you have. And make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Give us a like, subscribe, do all the things. But that'll do it for this week's episode of The Weekly Recharge.